and welcome back to episode 10 of i75Live. This week, we have a lot to talk about in a lot of different sports.
We've got variety.
Baseball playoffs started last night. College football's in full swing. A lot of interesting things going on when it comes to people opting out. Some Heisman stuff. And then, like always, we are going to be talking a lot about the NFL because it was another great week. Trade deadline. Yep. We've got some guys who we think are big candidates to get traded to some teams that need some help.
Yeah.
So yes, but other than that, I want to get right into baseball. My Braves, it was a crazy, on Monday, it was a crazy 2-game series to figure out who's in the last couple wild card spots. The Mets are playing really good right now. Their offense is humming. They're getting hot at the right time. This is what we say all the time.
Yep.
You got to get hot right at October. Seems like they're doing that. They showed that yesterday, putting up 8 runs against Milwaukee as well.
They're doing it with some important pitchers on the IL too. Yep. I think Senga's been out like all year. It's crazy what they're doing. Their offense looks really good.
Offense is getting hot, and Braves were able to keep up with them, able to have a couple comebacks, but we just our pitching, our bullpen our pitching and our bullpen has been kind of the bright spot of this year.
And now Chris Sale's out.
Now Chris Sale is out, so we didn't even have him last night, and it was awful last night, and
couldn't get anything going. This is what you were talking about leading up into the playoffs too, is that your pitchers have the capability, whether it's a guy that was just called up from AAA earlier that day, and only allowing, he had a good start. It was like 3 runs, but the offense just couldn't do anything.
No, I mean, we had 15. We struck out 15 times and had 0 walks.
And now you have to go against Dylan Cease in the next matchup. It's not looking good for the Braves.
I don't. And then they have Musgrove to pitch in Game 3 if we somehow win.
I would take this for what it is. It's impressive that y'all even made the playoffs with everything that was going on with Atlanta. They probably shouldn't have been there, honestly. Arizona probably gives teams a better fight just because the Braves are just so beat and battered, but it sucks. But promising for next year.
That's what I've kind of been saying all year is just get me to next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully I know Max Fried will probably be gone. Hopefully we re-sign Chris Sale. After
that year he just had.
Triple Crown. Like I kind of said, he's going to probably be the Cy Young winner.
He's the runaway Cy Young.
It sucks that he wasn't able to, pitch in the game against the Mets or the game last night.
Yeah.
Is what it is. But yeah, it is a little unfortunate, and it makes you. It makes you mad because you're like, dang, we're getting 15 strikeouts, can't get anything going.
Yep.
And then you really take a full picture of what this season was and go, to say we're even in the playoffs,
no way that
we should
have been in this position.
Yeah, I agree.
We are.
I agree.
But on to the other Cy Young winner, Detroit barely getting away from Houston. I don't know if you watched the end of that game, but Houston was 1 hit away from taking the lead.
I did. I watched a little bit when they took the 3-0 lead.
It's a scary moment when Skubal got hit in the hand.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
Luckily, it wasn't his pitching hand, so that helped. But yeah, no, they went up 3-0, and they've been very good small ball team all year.
Yep. They scored like 3 in the second inning.
3 in the second inning, and then it went all the way to the ninth, to where Houston finally had, I think they had 1 out.
They had the bases loaded, I think.
Bases loaded, yeah. And they got 2 outs and were able to get out of there to win Game 1. But yeah, Detroit is one of those teams, too, to where they shouldn't have even been in the playoffs because they won,
at the beginning of August, I believe it was August, they had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs.
And they won like 30 of their last 42 games or something crazy to make a run at the end of the year.
Very impressive.
So kudos to them.
Them and the Mets have really been 2 of the best teams in baseball.
They've gotten hot at the perfect time, and that's what baseball is all about.
And when Houston loses, America wins.
This is very true.
I love it. Gotta love it.
This is very
Sorry,
true.
Houston fans. We will never forget. People don't forget. But on to the next one. The Royals. I'm kind of worried about the Orioles. They were all this talk about them like throughout the year, and they really disappointed in this first game.
Well, and it's kind of like what they did last year. I know they kind of had the bye last year, and they were able which
I do not like the bye week. So
I don't either, but they came into it same way. They had all these star power, all these hitters,
all these young guys,
nothing. Kind of like the Braves. The Orioles and the Braves have kind of been very similar the past couple years.
They wasted that Corbin Burns start too. So I'm not familiar with their pitching order, but I know Corbin Burns is the ace. That's the guy you have to.
And he pitched very good.
Oh, absolutely.
In a playoff game, I know
he gave
one
up
run, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So, but the Royals, again, are a very good small ball team. They got on base. I think he stole second, had a single to the outfield, and he scored, and that's how they scored their one run.
Bobby Witt is the MVP of the league if he is not in the same era as Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah, he's played very good. But next game, like we kind of mentioned, the Mets.
They look so good.
The Mets offense right now is humming. And, you know...
And the pitching looked good enough. The Brewers have a really good lineup. Yeah. They got a really good lineup.
Well, there's a reason why they are where they are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the Mets, Lindor's playing awesome right now to win. He
has been the MVP of that team for a couple of years now, and I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough.
Well, and he started off the year terrible.
And then
just terrible. And then this past, month and a half, He's shown why he's an all-star. He's shown why he's one of the best players
why
in the league.
That, I think it was like a $300 million contract to go to the Mets at first. So
I give him credit. Their bats are, and you can make up for average or bad pitching when you can score 6-8 runs a game. And that's what they're doing. But last little section of baseball, unfortunate news, Pete Rose did pass away. This big
now that he's gone, they're going to put him in the Hall of Fame.
It sucks because he can't, he's the number one in hits, number one in all these categories, and he's just kind of been out of the Hall of Fame for
he's been I'm sure same thing as Bonds. They're probably honorary members. Like they know they belong in there, or in Pete Rose's case, knew that he belonged in there. So I don't think that matters that much for him. Obviously, it'd still be nice to get like that ceremony and recognition, but I mean, if you're a baseball fan in general, you know the name Pete Rose. Yeah. Like it's not
I remember growing up, we had a picture of him in my bathroom of a signed frame of him, stealing bases. So he is a legend. It does suck he didn't get to relish in that moment that a lot of people have to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think they will. I think he deserves it.
He absolutely deserves it. There's not too many people that deserve it more, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, college football. Week 5, it was another game of the year so far with Georgia and Alabama.
It was a top 5 game this decade, in my opinion.
We'll get into that. The first game is Minnesota, Michigan.
They got robbed. If you guys out there watched this game, God, Minnesota got robbed.
And I feel so again, bad. Michigan didn't even have 100 passing yards.
Oh,
they barely had 100 passing yards in their last 2 games. I don't know how you're going to think that you can go beat an Ohio State, an Oregon, or someone like that, not even passing for 100 yards.
Dave Portnoy came out this past weekend and said that he would pledge whatever money it took to be able to...
Up to $3 million.
Up to $3 million for a quarterback for Michigan. And you want to know the sad part about that? There's nothing that the NCAA can do to stop
They can't.
Because there's no regulations. They went and passed a lazy legislation, and now people can just do stuff like that. Like, hey, I'll X amount of money for you to come play here. Yep. You can have whatever sponsorship you want with Barstool. Yep. And 9 out of 10 athletes are probably not turning that down.
No.
It's a good situation.
Even if they end up sucking or end up that just connection of you were affiliated with Barstool for when you... Yeah. It could go way longer than you playing.
There's tons of Barstool athletes.
Yeah.
Tons of them.
Yes, to your point, to the fact that people can come out now and say, just because this is my favorite team and I have a crap ton of money, I can give you $3 million to come play for my favorite team. It's ridiculous.
It's so twisted. But more on the end of that game, Minnesota had a chance to win and should have had more of a chance to win that game. They scored, right? And I don't remember how much time was left, but it was not much at all. This may have been time for like one last drive. Minnesota has an onside kick and they recover it. And they call offsides on the onside kick after it's recovered. And the replay shows that the guy got a perfect get off from the line. He did not leave early. He was not there before the ball.
There's no way to review it.
And there's no way to review that, which sucks. Because it was a clean play. They recovered the onside kick. That put them at like the 50, 40-yard line. And honestly, they were only down by 3. Yeah. So you can either take that game to overtime or you march down the field and score. And it sucks that Minnesota, and honestly, the people watching that game got robbed of something like that happening. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. Next game, Miami was able to outlast Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has played good.
It was a back-and-forth game.
Miami,
that one was played Friday.
And Miami has a Heisman candidate in Cam Ward.
I love Cam Ward. I didn't realize that he was going out into the draft this year. At least he's projected to. I don't know if he has to go, but he would be one of my top picks. Honestly, my top 2 for quarterbacks, I love Milroe. I love Cam Ward, and then Shador is right behind them in terms of ability.
Yeah.
But Milroe and Cam Ward, in terms of leadership, from what I've seen, can do everything else that Shador can do on the field.
Yeah.
I really like, especially Milroe. Oh, my God.
Well, and Cam Ward had some mistakes in that game, too, so he was able to overcome that and still lead his team to
some
a victory.
improv ability, too. You saw that clip where he was escaping the pocket. Yeah. He dodged like 3 tackles and then just shuffled past it off to the side and went for like 15, 20 yards.
Yeah. So,
crazy.
No, Miami's, they're playing really good this year. I know before the season started, we were talking about them and how
could be the
maybe
ACC
they
champs.
finally took that step to where they were kind of always good, but always disappointed when it really came down to it. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. The game of the year, though, so far.
Not even close.
Not even close. UGA,
unless
Alabama.
they top it in the SEC championship somehow.
If you didn't watch this game, I don't know what you were doing. I know a lot of people shut it off, though, at halftime because it was like, 28-3, 20-something?
I kept it on because, when two teams are that good, it's really hard to keep the other one down for that long. It happens. Georgia had a pretty sizable lead against Bama a few years ago, and Bama just marched right back. So whenever these two teams clash, it's fireworks. I love it.
And Carson Beck ended up throwing for almost 500 yards. He went 4 for 4 in fourth down conversions in that second half, which was huge for that comeback.
My thing is, I feel like that game gets looked back on much more different if Beck doesn't have those horrible turnovers in the first quarter, or in the first half, really. He was throwing into double and triple coverage. No shot at all for his receiver. And that was a huge reason as why they were down by 4 touchdowns and then 30-7 going into half. So I saw some promising things in the second half. Obviously, it's really easy to throw to wide open receivers more times than not, but he still had some good throws where the guy was not open. Yeah. And the receiver just made a play on the ball.
Well, and also I think UGA, their skill position at the receiver it hasn't been this bad or not this talented in many years.
Yeah, there's really only
everything
one guy,
that's kind of happened
Smith.
In the offseason and some of the guys who got in trouble.
They've had to cut like 4 or 5 guys that are starters.
And so their skill position at that position is down this year. And to say, I know Carson Beck, people have his opinion, how's his system and how he has to fit Kirby. I think he is kind of playing with a little bit of a handicap when it comes to when you play like a team like Texas or a team like, and their schedule's crazy too. They still have to play Tennessee. They still have to play Texas.
Ole Miss as well, I'm pretty sure.
So, and Ole Miss is another one. Kentucky beats Ole Miss. Shout out Vanny, and we know you were really happy
about that. That was a great game too.
That was a great game. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think Georgia will still be Georgia. And you saw that.
They'll both probably still make the playoffs unless Georgia decides to drop one of these next games.
Well, I think as long as you split against Texas or Tennessee.
Tennessee's going to be such a tough game.
That will be a tough. I think Texas will be a tough game too. But if you have to win one of those games. If you lose both of those games and you've already lost to Alabama, that make it a little bit like how it was last year to where it was like,
I'm trying to think about how Georgia would get in if they lose again with 2 losses, because it makes it a very interesting point because it's 5 spots that are guaranteed, right, for all the conference winners, and then after that it's just kind of best goes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd still take Georgia over a lot of teams.
I absolutely would.
But like we saw last year, Georgia
doesn't always matter.
It doesn't always matter.
Georgia was the odd man out, 5th, and you saw what they did to FSU in their meaningless bowl game. Yep. They won by like 60.
Another topic of discussion that's been huge is this whole Heisman thing with Travis Hunter and
Ashton Gianti,
the running back from Boise State. I hear the argument of these guys aren't playing at an SEC or Big Ten level, but to say that like Travis Hunter doesn't deserve to have his name be in that list,
it's ridiculous.
Is I think a little crazy.
Same with Boise State's running back.
I agree. You these two guys especially, you can't choose who you play.
Exactly.
I realize you chose your team and you knew what you were going into, but for who they're playing and for how they're playing, you can't just completely throw it out the window just because they don't play for an SEC team or don't play for Big Ten. And that's how I've kind of been the past couple of years, honestly, to where it's like if you don't play for the SEC, Big Ten, one of these huge schools, and you're playing the best, then I really don't care how many yards you have against some of these worser programs, worser schools.
You look at it, and it really, NFL talent comes from everywhere. It's not just diluted towards SEC or Big Ten or even ACC. It comes from all over the place. And there's some very, very good NFL players who came from very small schools.
To think of right off the top of my head, Josh Allen from Wyoming.
Exactly.
And now look at him, So the list probably goes on and on that we can name some of these players. But yeah, I think what Travis Hunter is doing, we touched on it last week, what he's doing on both sides of the ball, interceptions, tackles for fumble, like all 100+ yards, touchdowns every single week. If he continues to do this, I don't know how he's not a finalist as the best football player in the country.
In my opinion, there's no discussion that Milroe and Ward both need to be in that discussion. Like 100%.
Milroe,
they
100%,
could be top two. It's those two guys. But after that, I start absolutely looking at Gianti and Travis Hunter.
And I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm not saying that maybe when it comes down to it, if Milroe wins the SEC...
Especially if Alabama's undefeated.
And if they're undefeated, it'd be really hard not to give them that. Mm-hmm. But to say that these guys...
What if Colorado keeps winning? Because no one saw Colorado being 4-1.
Well, they're what, 4-1?
Yeah. And they can still... They have a path to the playoffs if they win their division, right? Yeah. Or win their conference.
If they win their conference, they're in.
It's an interesting thing to talk about for sure. I don't know. People use that argument as, like you said, competition, but it's like your competition is the same as the guys that you're playing around. You know, it's not just skewed one way. Travis Hunter is not, he doesn't have a bunch of SEC talent on his side of the ball. It's not like he has that advantage. It's just him.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, a few other guys, like Shador is great. I think he would succeed in the SEC as well. But it's, you can't really use that argument as, the defenders he's going against aren't SEC talent. It doesn't matter. There are NFL players on that football field. Yeah. Absolutely. And not every player in the SEC is going to turn out to be incredible either.
Yeah.
There are absolutely some flops.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but more on, we had this discussion a few weeks ago about NIL and how it needs to be more regulated.
Yeah, and we kind of got crapped on it too, saying it's stupid and money will get...
This is what we meant when we were talking about what needed to be changed.
And
stuff like this.
It's not like you and me both know that no matter what you do, how you regulate it, there's always going to be money coming from... There's always going to be something, and that's what we saw before all this happened.
Yep.
But to say that now a guy can go to a team, be promised, like we saw with the quarterback, $100,000 for whatever...
Yeah, for background context, before we get full into it, University of Nevada, Las Vegas was, I think they were under some scrutiny this past week. Where not just one player. I saw it was like 2 or 3 guys.
I think it was running back and their quarterback.
It's crazy. Their quarterback was under the impression and was, I'm guessing, a formal agreement, nothing on paper though, which is what we're alluding to needs to happen, that he was going to get $100,000 in NIL. And up until this point, he had only received $3,000 of it. And so he was, he's going to exercise his ability to do what, he can in this NIL period. I'm done playing.
Yeah.
I'm
taking a red shirt completely. And I get this year back.
Transfer.
And it goes to my point for any company, that includes hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in some of the, you write a contract. Because
it's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
It happens all the time.
And that's all I'm saying is for a lot of these guys now, and, I'm on full scholarship. These scholarships to go to Alabama, to go to any school, is nothing compared to what some of these guys are making. So why there's no value.
So Shador is making like $5 million.
There's no value to his education scholarship at Colorado. Because he can go anywhere he wants, get that same scholarship, and get the same amount of money he's getting from all the outside sources.
Yep.
So when I say there needs to be a contract, there needs to be something in writing of, okay, we'll give you $100,000. You have to play at our school for 2 years, for 3 years, for whatever the case may be.
You got a payment period, like a paycheck.
Yes, that's what it needs to be.
People love to bring up the argument that, they're college players, they're not professionals. I mean, they damn near are. It's literally just a title at this point. That separates the
semi-pro football.
It is.
And they are making... Now, I know it's the top 5% that are really pulling some of these numbers, but these guys, it needs to be written in contract, or even some of these other guys that we see now, like... You have to stay at our school for 3 years if you want to see anything.
You got to play X amount of games if you want to see the full value of this contract. You get a certain amount for every game played or something like that. That is literally how NFL contracts are built.
Yeah.
There's guaranteed money, and then they get incentives and then they get a game check for every game that they played. It's structured differently for each guy, but that is the foundation.
Well, and to give an example, like Kirk Cousins' deal, he got all this money, but
it's front loaded.
If he doesn't, and if he doesn't pan out, they can get rid of him, and they get all that money back the way the contract is written for this reason. So that is where something needs to happen, and I'm sick and tired of, like you said, of they're kids, you have turned this into this. It is the wild, wild west of everyone's getting money, regardless if it's under the table or not. There's got to be something.
It was almost less messy when it was under the table. I hate to say it, but it really was. Because this is crazy. This is going to keep happening over and over. You're going to see this pop up more and more as players get more comfortable with just leaving when they feel like they're not being, done right by.
Well, and there's just no commitment to committing to a team.
Nope.
If I'm not playing, I can just leave with no penalty and go literally have this year completely washed and restart.
Crazy.
No punishment whatsoever.
It's crazy.
So anyway, that's kind of our rant on that. Let's get into NFL football.
It was a good week of football last week.
It was. I thought
some games
it was
that I did not expect to be.
The Saints and the Falcons, we kind of said was going to be a good division game.
Awesome.
There were 2 touchdowns scored on special teams. There was a pick 6.
The Falcons, the Falcons didn't have a touchdown on offense.
Yeah,
and they lost that way. I think week 1 they didn't give up a touchdown.
Yeah,
and now they get to be the ones who win without a touchdown. So it's.
Yeah, and now I will say Kirk Cousins drove him down the field at the end. I know there was a penalty that helped him to get in field goal range, but we've seen it. That's
credit to Kirk.
Credit to him finding the guys when he needed to. And yeah, we will be there tomorrow. I'm very excited.
When this episode airs, the game will be later tonight.
Yeah, so. I'm looking forward to it for a lot of reasons. I think Tampa Bay is an awesome team to watch
NFC
right now.
South in general. The Panthers even played. They played the Bengals very competitive this week. Very competitive.
Yeah. So, yes, we will be there. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's actually my first time in the Benz.
You never been there?
I've never been.
It's a nice stadium.
So, it's my first time going.
Nice
I've been to Truist a ton of times, but I've just never been. So that will be really fun. I think Chris is coming, Dolphins fan. So I think he was joking that he might wear like a Dan Marino jersey or something.
I'm showing up in a Bears jersey. Come on, Chris. Let's look like the outcasts.
So yes, that's going to be a lot of fun. But no, it was a good game. Next game though was Vikings-Packers.
I thought the Vikings were going to be in it. I didn't think that they would be. Obviously, the game was super close, and you could make an argument for the Packers winning that game because their kicker missed 2 field goals.
Well, and
they lost by 2.
Kind of what we said too. Jordan Love had 3 interceptions or 2? He had 2 or 3. I can't remember exactly what it was.
This is what happens when a guy. This is when an organization kind of has to watch out for their guys because he is not. There is no way in hell that he is 100% healthy right now. He's like 2.5 weeks off of spraining his MCL, and he looked normal, but there's no way that he's getting the same power in his plant foot when he's throwing the ball,
And this is what we said, that the Vikings defense was maybe going to take advantage of this.
Absolutely.
And everyone was like, no, they're not. No, the Vikings
are the real deal.
We saw it. The Vikings are really good.
Really good.
Sam Darnold is, I think, leading the NFL in passing yards right now. Yep. He's got arguably the best receiver in football. Aaron Jones is playing very good out of the backfield, catching passes and running the ball.
Is crazy.
Defense is scheming up. I mean, they've got more turnovers than I think any team right now in the NFC
more
on
sacks
defense.
Too.
So, yeah, Vikings are legit. And this is a team that I don't think anyone thought was gonna do
Absolutely
what they're doing
not.
right. Besides Vikings fans.
The NFC North is the best division in football. I don't care. I'm saying it. Especially with how the AFC North has looked so far. The NFC North. Yeah. It's got 4 teams that could very well be there at the end of the year. We got to keep going. The Minnesota looks extremely good. I think they could keep it up. The Bears have showed promise. I'm not all the way there yet, but the Packers and Lions
are still very good. And the Lions,
right there.
I think the Lions have the best offense in the league. We'll talk about them.
It's almost too good. Like, they can't stop. No one is able to stop them.
The running back duo that they have and the weapons they have, and if Jared Goff protects the ball and doesn't turn...
He was 18 for 18 on Monday night.
18 for 18 with almost 300 yards.
He caught a touchdown pass, too. Doing everything. Yeah. It's crazy.
So, but let's... Rams-Bears. This game... had a little towards the beginning. I think through 3 quarters, it was almost like, dang, the Bears were supposed to be beating the crap out of this team because of the injuries.
And so I would say this: the offense took a lot not a lot, but they took a bit to get going the first 2 quarters. And it looked better. They were putting together drives. They just weren't getting in the end zone every time. But I think the biggest story was DeAndre Swift just came out of nowhere and decided to have a career game.
Which is, I mean, what they're going to need to start running the ball.
That's the blueprint for a young quarterback. You need a strong run game, and you need the quarterback to not make mistakes. And Caleb played a very clean game. He only missed 6 passes.
Yeah.
And passes under 15 yards, he didn't miss any. And so
his
that's
touchdown pass to DJ Moore was also very nice.
That was a dot. He had another one to Kmet over the field. This was on our game-winning drive to preserve the lead. He lobbed it right over a linebacker's hand, and it just perfect in the basket to Kmet. So I keep seeing stuff like that every week.
There are flashes.
It looks good. It looks very good.
Defense is still playing very good.
The offensive line was actually much better, but there's still, I go back and watch the tape, and you can see that our center is just by far the worst lineman in general on the field on every snap. But he does have, every once in a while, he'll get a good downhill block. But pass pro is just rough.
Yeah.
And you saw, there were a couple times where Caleb was getting lit up, too, and he barely got the ball out. And a couple of them went for big gains, but offensive line continues to be an issue. And I think that is going to be what ultimately stops the Bears from truly being a great team. Yeah. And it sucks. Yeah. It sucks. Because, like you said, we still won the game.
Yeah.
It wasn't a necessarily close one because our defense is just that good. But we should have had like 35 points.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Next one, this one, the Jaguars. So close, man.
Do you think it's a Trevor problem? I see
it
and I go, this is a Trevor problem. And then I see other plays that he makes, and I'm like, that was a great throw. That was a great play.
They're so hurt. That's true. They're very hurt. ETN has not been a good, and that may be because of their O-line, which honestly, we've seen. And this year, honestly, any year, but this year especially, O-line has got to be one of the more important units on the field, period.
Yeah.
It's got to be, because you can't run any offense without a decent O-line. And Houston, as we know, we've seen them in prime time a couple times now. They are great. Their defensive line is very nasty. And they don't have any slouches in the secondary. Linebackers are good.
And you got a good offense to back them up.
Exactly. So the fact that the Jaguars were even in a position to win this game, down to the final drive, final minute, they had the lead. So it shows promise. But honestly, I think Doug Peterson might be
0-4.
He might be the first head coach fired. And not just 0-4. They're like, for their last 8 games or 9 games, they're no wins. 0-for.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think it makes a difference, because we talked about last week, Bill Belichick. We'll see. We'll see where he ends up.
Well, and I think, like he said,
he will be coaching next year.
He's in Florida. You get it. I still think Trevor's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
You could build off of it. You could.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to restart.
I mean, they kind of have to. They just paid him all this money.
Yeah, this is also true.
They, literally just paid him.
This is also true.
You're stuck for at least 3 years.
Yep.
3 or 4.
Next one, Chiefs, Chargers. Chiefs, literally, first drive, Patrick Mahomes throws an interception,
that was
overthrown, bad throw to the sideline.
But even worse.
Goes to make a tackle, collides with Rice, and Rice is probably, I don't think it's been confirmed, but they're saying that it's probably an ACL.
It honestly could be worse than an ACL. I know people have looked at the reports and say, they haven't come out and say it's an ACL tear, so that must mean he's not out for the year.
Yeah.
No, I heard that they're not able to get a clear image because of all the swelling in his knee, which normally means that there's more than one thing torn.
Yeah.
And they had to wait. I think the reports were that they wouldn't be able to get results until later this week. So to have to wait that long for a knee to swell down so you can get a clear image of what's wrong, he could be out longer than a year.
Yeah.
And he will be anyways, because he's got a suspension coming up at some point after his legal issues get resolved.
Yeah.
But it sucks. This is why you don't tell your quarterback to, when you turn over the ball, don't try and make the tackle. Yeah. Obviously for your QB's health, but stuff like that happens.
Yeah,
Mahomes is not used to making tackles, and he whiffed.
Yeah,
right in.
And I'm sure he was frustrated. I'm sure he was mad because he has thrown quite a bit of interceptions so far.
He's not been playing very well.
He has not been. I actually saw a graphic that Jalen Hurts and him are very, very comparable right now.
Kelsey, the bright spot is that Kelsey looked like himself again. I think he had 89 receiving yards, 7 or 8 catches. So I think we'll talk more about what I think the Chiefs' offense is going to look like later when we talk about. I
them
just
playing
traded
the Saints.
for Xavier Worthy in fantasy. I'm very
I have an
happy
opinion
about
on him
that.
too. So we'll get into that. But before we do, next week's games, last couple, Bills Ravens. I said this to you when we were watching this game. The Bills and the Ravens are both designed to play with the lead. And
Absolutely.
if they don't have the lead, I don't think they are talented and skilled enough.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks aside, and maybe the running backs aside, because I think both teams have very good quarterbacks, very good running backs.
Great O-line too.
The Bills, yes, and even I would say the Ravens have a good O-line, the way they can run the ball. But they are both designed and built to play with the lead. And if you don't, I think it will be very, very hard. We saw this with the Ravens the first couple weeks when they got down behind. They couldn't come back because they just didn't have enough firepower. And we saw this with the Bills against the Ravens. They didn't have enough firepower to come back against a very good defense and make a comeback with, down 14, 21 points.
Honestly, they kind of have the same weakness. It's their receivers. Yeah. It's their receiving core because they've got the running backs, they've got the running game, they've got the QB to drive down the field, but you don't have, outside of, with the Bills, I love Khalil Shakir, but he's really the only guy that's getting consistently open on the offense. And with the Ravens, it's really getting consistently open. I saw Bateman has a pretty promising, I don't remember what they call it, but he gets open a lot, like 70% of the time. But then Zay Flowers, and it's just not enough. Keon Coleman could be the big possession guy for the Bills down the road, but you need that guy to go. You can toss up a 50-50 ball to and come down with a 40-yard catch, and that helps out the offense tremendously instead of having to complete
methodically
passes,
drive down the field
10,
and take
12 play drives and stuff like that. That's not sustainable. You need explosive plays.
Well, it's not sustainable too when when you're down 14, 17
especially
points.
When you're down. Yeah.
And this is I guarantee you, one of these teams, it's gonna happen in the playoffs.
Yep.
They're gonna be down, and they're not gonna be able to. And I'm not Josh Allen is great. Lamar, I think, has been great. They're running backs, but you can only do so much. And we've seen this in the playoffs with the Ravens. The past couple years. When it comes to when the quarterback needs to put the team on the back, throw the ball, it just hasn't been able to work out for him. So we will see, but that is what I took away from that game is those two teams have to play with the lead, and it makes it very, very hard for them to come back when they are down.
Meanwhile, you've got the Chiefs that don't need a lead; they just need to not be down by more than 7. It's ridiculous.
Well, when you got Mahomes, I think anything's possible. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more. Last game, though, I think one of the best games of the week.
A little bit.
Seahawks Lions.
Oh, it's so much fun to watch.
Jared Goff,
awesome.
18 for 18,
such a great
298
game.
yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He had a receiving touchdown.
I don't care that they're in my division. I love watching the Lions. I love Dan Campbell. I love the whole Lions team. It's awesome to see.
Their O-line is so good. Yep. Their 2 running backs in Montgomery and Gibbs are
it's the best in the league.
Best in the league.
I'm so upset that the Bears ever let Montgomery go. I wanted him the whole time, and I knew this was going to happen when he went. He's just so that catch that he had that catch where he caught it. It was like a little check down and then just ran over the corner and then started running for like 40 more yards. That won me my fantasy match. I was just sitting there like, no way.
Yeah. But then awesome. You throw St. Brown in there, you throw Laporta in there, you throw Williams. He's been playing
70-yard touchdown.
I will say though, their secondary gets a lot of penalties. I will say that is the one spot on that team that I would look at and be like, that could be a problem.
Trade deadline. That's coming up. We're talking about that a little bit. There is something you can do about that.
There's some guys that we have highlighted that could make some big impacts for some of these teams. But Seahawks didn't look bad either. I thought Geno was looking good. Walker came back this week.
I know you mentioned that Darnold. I think Darnold's second in passing yards because Geno, after that night, is the league leader. He's been playing awesome.
Yeah, and he's got lots of guys to throw the ball to.
This goes to our point last week about how it's not always on the QB's fault when they fail at first. Because we were watching Darnold and Geno and Baker and just a whole slew of guys. Andy Dalton even is having success.
It takes the right situation.
Yes, it's not all on the quarterback. Yes, it's the most important position, but it matters. Situation matters. It always will. It always will. And these guys are glaring examples of it, especially Geno. Yeah. He's been playing like a top 5 QB, honestly.
I agree.
Minus some turnovers.
His stats show that. And they're 3-1 still. Yeah, they lost, but they lost to a very, very, very good
They look like the
Lions
best team in their division. Also probably the healthiest, but I saw the injury report going into the Lions game. I think they had like 4 defensive linemen out, starters. Yeah. So when they're back, Seattle has a great team. That's another team that people just completely overlooked.
Yeah.
And I'm very surprised. They look awesome.
Yeah. Well, to get into that and teams and, injuries and stuff, some of the guys that we think are going to get traded at this deadline.
That's a lot of receivers.
There's a couple obvious ones. We have a couple more in here. I think the obvious one is Davante Adams. He already came out and said he wanted to trade.
After watching, because we both watched receiver, I think it was very clear after watching everything transpire during last year that it really was going to be a decision for him within the first few weeks whether or not he wanted to stay.
Yeah.
And he's already there. His decision's made. I think he's off to New York to play with Rodgers again, honestly.
I mean, I know we have the Jets, Commanders, and Steelers written down, which I think would be great fits.
Commanders and Steelers they are great fits, but I do think just ultimately he's going to
I think he wants to go play with Rodgers.
And the Jets could use it. Yeah. They could use another guy to get off of Garrett Wilson's back, honestly.
Yep. Another one that I think maybe a little surprising, but Amari Cooper.
I thought it was surprising until I saw what the Browns did at the start of the year. They turned all of his remaining salary outside of $650,000 into a signing bonus so that they can trade him and only they take a cap hit of $650. Yeah. That's it. And so I really do think, especially if they keep losing, like maybe these next 2 games, he's gone.
Well, and if he does, I think he goes to the Chiefs.
I do too, honestly. Or the Commanders or the Steelers.
Because the Chiefs, I think, are going to, again, we'll talk about it because I've got some opinions on that, but I think the Chiefs need a receiver bad.
I think they do.
Another receiver, I don't know, DeAndre Hopkins could be another target for the Chiefs.
Honestly. And he was in talks to go to the Chiefs before he signed with the Titans.
Yeah.
Or was he traded to the Titans? Either way, the Chiefs were in discussions for that.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, it probably should have happened a few years ago. It's crazy that the Chiefs haven't even, I'm sure they've thought about it, but why have they not acted on it?
I'm sure they have. I just,
maybe it's teams gatekeeping, not wanting them to... But
I would,
unless you're the Bills,
I'm not giving
hand them.
I know,
whatever
right?
They want.
The draft picks that gets you. Yeah, another receiver that I thought could have, but there's no way because they're in the same division. Cortland Sutton.
Adams. Yeah, Cortland Sutton.
There was no way, and that's why. Yeah, like you said, Adams.
The Commanders could use Cortland Sutton. A guy like Cortland Sutton. They don't have a possession guy.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin can do everything in between. He's a deep threat, but he is very good intermediate. And then Luke McCaffrey's a good slot guy. Honestly, he has been. And then Eckler's a good slot guy. And then, they got the good running game with once Eckler, yes, but also Brian Robinson.
He's been
the one thing they're missing on that offense is a deep possession guy, 50-50 ball guy. And I bet you could get Cortland Sutton for pretty cheap if the Broncos keep losing.
Yeah.
Because he's getting older. I think he's 28.
Broncos now, though, have won 2 games.
That's true.
So you never know. They might not want to get rid of. But yes.
It's very true.
I think he is a good candidate.
Well, another sleeper team, honestly, I think the Giants could use a lot. They have, once again, a good slot guy. Wan'Dale Robinson has been playing really good the past few weeks. And then Neighbors is just electric.
Yeah.
And their running game hasn't been terrible. But add Cortland Sutton, and honestly, Daniel Jones has not been playing that bad.
Yeah.
So another very likely trade candidate. He could end up going to a team we didn't, suggest, but...
Yeah. Well, the next one, too, is Hassan Reddick.
I don't think he's back to the Jets.
I don't think he goes back to the Jets. I agree. We have the Buccaneers and the Lions written down.
I think those are 2 very, very realistic. Other conference, the Jets would not care that much sending him back over there. They got him from Philly in the first place. Lions. So that was what I was alluding to with fixing the Lions secondary. The corners aren't going to have to cover for as long if the QB is getting pressured within 2 to 3 seconds.
And they already don't because their D-line is very good.
And having Aiden Hutchinson, because, we talked about him as Defensive Player of the Year. He's been awesome.
Oh, yeah, he's been awesome.
Their D tackles have been awesome. They just don't have another guy on the opposite side of the field that consistently gets pressures. And could you imagine Hutchinson and Hassan Reddick on the same line?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it could make the Lions even better. Honestly.
100%. And the line, like we've said, their D-line is already very good.
Yep.
Their linebackers are very good. It's their secondary. But you get a good D-line, then that takes a lot of pressure off of that secondary.
Oh, absolutely.
Next one, Bryce Young.
We
talked about the Dolphins. It would make sense with how their quarterback situation is right now, even with Tua when, he'll be back. I think... when you look at that Dolphins offense, you've got all this money you've paid to Hill, to Waddle, to the running backs.
I doubt it happens, but touching on this really quick, do you think Tyreek gets traded back to the Chiefs?
I don't think so.
That would be so ridiculous.
I don't think so. I'm sure there's been
probably inquired
talks or conversations about it. I don't think it happens though.
That would be crazy.
It wouldn't surprise me if they've, offered or said, hey, what.
Well, the Dolphins are going to be in cap hell in a few years because they just paid Tua, they just paid Waddle, they just paid Hill. They're going to need to pay some of their defensive guys. Chubb is making a lot of money right now.
And he's not even playing yet.
Jalen Phillips is going to be worth a lot of money. Javon Holland's going to be worth a lot of money. Jalen Ramsey is worth a lot of money right now. And they're not. They're hurt. Like, the roster is hurt, and they're not winning games. So it's not a good mix when you're forking out money like this.
They are missing a quarterback, whether that's with Tua or whether that's with someone else. They are missing a quarterback.
Saying Bryce Young makes a lot of sense. And the second team, honestly, this wouldn't mean much for this year, but Bryce Young on the Rams honestly fits the mold. I think that could be. I think McVay, of any coach besides McDaniel, could do a lot with Bryce Young. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I know that's
It doesn't really demand a lot of deep throws. Obviously, the Dolphins, yes.
You got Cooper, you got Puka, you've got a good running back, a good they've always kind of historically been good around the ball.
Defense is being rebuilt too. Their defense looked out. Their secondary was but they got a young D line to replace Aaron
they've
Donald.
got a lot of injuries, so I could see that. Even if he's a backup for a couple years behind Stafford until Stafford retires.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Last one though, I think a lot of people are probably nowhere is Budda Baker.
I think he gets moved if the Cardinals keep because they honestly I thought they'd be a little better.
They had that one really good game against the Rams, and then they've gone kind of cold.
They fumbled it against the Bills. They should have won that game. They couldn't stop Josh Allen. They could not stop Jaden Daniels at all. Yeah. They got blown out.
Well, no one has been able to so far, but yeah.
That's a different story. But yeah, Budda Baker, honestly. And I think the teams that could go after him are the Vikings and the Jets. And I'll add one more team, the Lions. Could absolutely, because I think both of the Lions' starting safeties are hurt, or at least banged up. This would be huge for them.
Yeah.
And so I think any of those teams, they're not division rivals, none of them. So it realistically could get done. I think, honestly, and Budda Baker's a great player.
Yeah,
he's also a great leader, too.
Yeah.
I think we saw, I think it was Hard Knocks during, I think, in-season. It was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Budda Baker's one of my favorite players after that. Yeah. He's awesome.
To get into this week's games, though, week 5, like we kind of mentioned, first game, Thursday night, Bucks-Falcons.
We'll be at this one.
We will be at this one. I'm taking the Bucks. I'm going to take the Bucks.
Really?
I think the Falcons' offense, the fact that they didn't score a single touchdown last week, Kyle Pitts didn't even have a catch last week. Yeah. Bijan Robinson, as I know, dealing with a hamstring injury. The Saints held him to under 30 rushing yards last week. I don't fully trust that Falcons offense yet, and the Bucks look really, really good. So I think the Bucks come into Atlanta and they take this one.
It's definitely possible. I am on the fence. I really don't know. Because part of me wants to shorten your lead in this little primetime picks thing. But if I'm wrong, well, I don't know.
A lot of these games, too, are freaking coin flips. I just
especially this one, because it's not like
a short week. Both teams are dealing. I saw the Bucks have like 15 guys on their injury report. That's what I heard. Falcons are dealing with some injuries with, I know, Bijan and some of these, and Kirk Cousins. We really don't know how healthy he is.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a great game, but I'm taking the Bucks. I think their offense, Baker's playing better at the quarterback position right now.
Yeah.
It's short, but like we said, short week.
Secondary,
the home team on Thursday night has always kind of taken these games. Yeah, so
sorry, Chris.
But I'm excited though. This is like we said, first game we're going to be there at the Benz for myself. It's going to be great.
I'm going to take some more time to decide on this one. I'll be back to this.
Let's get next one. Jets Vikings.
That's going to be a really good one as well.
I honestly am going to say that if the Vikings can blow out the Packers the way they did, they're at home now against a Jets team who kind of seems like they're blowing up a little bit on the inside.
They have a much better defense, though.
This is true.
The Packers have a great secondary, but the Jets have a good defense in general. And so I don't think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. It's probably going to be like a 20-14 kind of game, which I don't know which way I lean. Because obviously, the Vikings couldn't be playing any better right now, really. Outside of a few turnovers.
I'm riding with the Vikings till they show me not to.
So that's a fair point.
And the Jets do have Aaron Rodgers, but the Vikings defense has
they've
shut down some really good teams, some really good
Brian
offenses.
Flores is going to be a head coach after this year. Like he has to be. I don't care about those stories that came out with him and Tua after. Nope. Does not matter. He just take control of my defense. I'll find an offensive coordinator to worry about the QB.
Exactly.
It's really that big of an issue.
Rams-Bengals.
Ravens-Bengals.
Ravens-Bengals, sorry. I think the Ravens, they played very good.
I just don't think how is Cincinnati going to stop Derrick Henry?
I don't know either.
How are they going to?
I don't know. And Joe Burrow can only do so much.
Chuba Hubbard had over 100 yards last Sunday against the Bengals. Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I think I lean the Ravens in this.
I
just
agree.
because of Derrick Henry.
It's in Cincinnati, but yeah, the Ravens, and they're coming off a hot week of beating the Bills. We're not picking this game because it's not a primetime game, but I'm going to go with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Next one, though, like kind of back to Ravens and Buffalo, how they play very similar. Buffalo at Houston.
I think
if
this is going to be one of the
Buffalo
best
gets behind, I think they're in trouble. If Houston can do kind of what the Ravens did to Buffalo.
This is a Stephon Diggs revenge game.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
I'm going up against him in fantasy this week, so I just have a bad feeling Diggs is going to have like 100 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Good night to the Houston happy endings.
I don't know, though. We will see. If Buffalo comes out and they can control the line of scrimmage, run the ball the way they did on their 3-0 streak, I can see this being a very close game. But if Houston jumps out to a lead the same way the Ravens did against them, it's going to be an uphill battle because
I think very highly of Houston too. I think they're easily a top 5 team.
Yeah.
I don't care about the any divisional matchup has a chance to be flipped one way or the other. So don't look too much into that Jaguars game because they play each other every year, twice a year.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to surprise that team. But yeah, this is going to be an awesome game.
Yeah.
And I do think that Houston gets the edge, especially with Von Miller out. That's big.
Yeah.
It's really big.
Yeah, he got suspended 4 games for some conduct.
I don't think it ever came out what he did. I just saw it was a personal conduct violation.
Yeah. So, next one, though, Packers-Rams.
Another good one. I think the Packers with just how many injuries.
2 very good coaches. I think it's going to be a coaching duel.
Probably 2 of the best offensive coaches in the league right now.
The Rams, I just still think are too banged up. I just think they're still too hurt. Where the Packers have... I know Watson got hurt. Big surprise. Kind of called that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed playing very, very good. Called that one at the beginning of the year as well. He was going to be. I think he's the number 1 receiver in fantasy still.
He's close.
He's up there. He's top 3. I think
Nico Collins is first, but I think Jaden Reed is top 3 or 4.
Yeah, so
I've got him on my team.
Yeah, I've got him in my flex on one of my teams. I had Rice on 3 of my teams too, so that really sucks. Because he was winning me some matchups.
Yeah,
but no, yeah, I think the Packers will probably win this. The coaching differences between how we said the Bears played the Rams last week. I think the Rams outcoached the Bears just enough to where then it finally was like we have all these injuries and we just can't. I mean,
the Rams. I will say the Rams probably win that game the way we played and the way they played
if they have all their guys. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think the Packers, Jordan Love coming off, he had a little bit of a rough start, but came back strong against, the Vikings. I think the Packers take this one. Again, we're not picking this because it's not prime time, but got the Packers. Yeah. Sunday Night Football. This one, I have no idea. Cowboys, Steelers.
I'm scared to pick this one. I'm really scared.
I will say, though, I have it written down. There's a lot of injuries. No Lawrence, no Micah Parsons on the defensive line, so it could make for a lot of run, scramble plays for Justin Fields. No one's going to be able to contain him.
It's true.
I think even Najee Harris could have a decent game, and the Steelers could really control the tempo and the line of scrimmage.
When did Micah Parsons get hurt?
He got hurt at the very end of the game, their last game.
I must have missed
against the Giants.
That sucks.
So he's out. So yes,
DeMarcus Lawrence is out too. Wow.
So, I think because of those, I put a lot of emphasis on those 2 guys and how they do it. I'm going to go with the Steelers at home.
I would agree with that, just because of those injuries, and TJ Watt's going to do TJ Watt things, so really the Steelers' offense is not going to be able to – it's not going to have to do that much. It's really not.
Yep, so if the Steelers can control the line of scrimmage the way I think they can with those 2 guys out, I've got the Steelers.
Yeah,
so
I'd agree. And then the last one, this is another good one. It's really good.
This is a very good one. I have – very interested in seeing what this Chiefs offense looks like for a couple reasons. Not having Rice is huge.
He's going to be back to last year, I bet.
He was a huge playmaker in that offense. I still don't think, I know Travis had a better game. He had almost 100 yards. This is now just a bigger target on Travis's back to go, okay, let's focus way more coverage on Travis and make someone else beat us.
Yeah.
Because I think Worthy is good. My problem with him, though, is it almost feels like he either scores a home run or he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's boomer bust.
When he catches it, it's either a touchdown or it's, a screen pass that goes for 2 yards.
Yeah.
So until someone on that offense really comes out and proves to me that, hey, I can take over the Rice roll, or I can take over kind of the way Tyreek Hill did when he was there, I'm literally double, triple teaming Travis and making someone else beat me. And I know you have Mahomes, and I know he can do anything with whoever you give him because that's how good he is. But I am still double teaming, triple teaming Kelsey, making Worthy beat you.
Are you saying what I think you're saying then?
I'm still taking the Chiefs.
That's what I thought.
Because of Mahomes.
Yep.
But I will say the Saints, what they did, they held Kyle Pitts to zero points in fantasy, so 0 catches, 0 yards. They held Bijan to under 30 yards rushing. So if the Saints can put together a plan to, hey, we're going to take away, and we're going to, like they made the Falcons have Darnell Mooney beat them. And that's what you live with that. If you take away their best players and go, well, their third, fourth guy beat us, oh, well, we did what we planned to do. That is what the Saints are going to have to do, and just hope that Mahomes doesn't turn one of these nobody receivers into prime Tyreek Hill or prime, one of these
This game
guys.
right here could very well decide whether or not the Chiefs trade for a receiver. Yeah. Honestly, I think it could. I think it could come down to this and how much they're able to do on offense with just Kelsey and Worthy. Because Pacheco's out. Kareem Hunt has, obviously he'll just show up and ball no matter where he is. Who else? They got Justin Watson and Noah Gray.
They have 3 pretty good tight ends. But yeah, I mean, if I'm the Saints,
Sky Moore has been completely, useless. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really Worthy and Kelsey.
Well, and I think the Saints should have won last week. They had a special team. The Falcons had a special teams touchdown,
barring a 58-yard field goal. Yeah, they do win that game. Yeah. It was down to the last
even
play.
With giving up a touchdown on special teams and a pick six.
Yep.
You look at this game and you go, okay.
Didn't allow a single touchdown.
We've been able to run the ball very well with Kamara. Yep. We have good receivers to take shots down the field. Olave is very good over the middle. You control the game. You control the line of scrimmage. You have some of these long drives like we've seen them been able to do. I think it could be a bad recipe for the Chiefs. I'm still not picking against them though because it's Mahomes, and again, I'm not picking against them, but I'm going to go with Mahomes and the Chiefs in this one. But it could be way closer than I think a lot of people are thinking it could be. And I know the Saints have played very good this year. They kind of didn't play very good last week. I think they bounce back and keep it competitive as long as there's a lot of ifs here. I know I'm saying a lot of ifs. If the Saints do this, if they do this. And you could say that about all these games. But I think the Saints legitimately have a good chance of going into Kansas City with all these injuries, with all the things that the Chiefs aren't playing amazing right now. And Mahomes has come out and said that.
They're very vulnerable. But I would say the Saints have some offensive line worries. I think their starting center, who's been playing incredible, is out for like 6 to 8 weeks.
I didn't know that.
I think they have a guard that's hurt too. So that, especially when you're going up against Chris Jones this week, might be all the Chiefs need, honestly, to keep that offense at bay. Because secondary is decent, and if Chris Jones can get pressure up the middle, it's going to limit a lot of what they can do with Kamara.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. Last little segment of this episode, like we've always done, we got our bets of the week.
Yep.
I have Deebo Samuel over 56.5 yards. They're playing the Cardinals. We saw what Washington did to the Cardinals last week. I think it could be a high-scoring game. Cardinals can put up points too, so they're not, it depends on what Cardinals team we get. I think, though, Deebo finally has his breakout game of the year.
This probably heavily favors the Niners if the Cardinals defense is going to show up, or not show up, I should say. But because the Niners defense is healthy. I mean, pretty healthy. So the Cardinals already are fighting an uphill battle against that unit. And so,
but I love Deebo Samuel this week. They use him a lot. He just, his first game back was last week, coming on this week. So 56.5, I like it. And I could have gone with Ayuk. I could have gone with Kittle because I like this whole offense this week. But I think my favorite guy for them this week is Deebo Samuel.
Yep. Mine this week, Travis Kelce, over receiving yards. I think he is going to be the focal point of that offense. Whether or not they're even, double or triple teaming him, I still think he finds his way to at least 70 receiving yards. His is over 61.5. So, yeah, take that over. I think
he's going to need to.
He needs to. If the Chiefs are going to win this game, which we both think they will, then he's going to need to. Which makes this bet pretty likely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, like we kind of said, another great week of football. Hoping for another great week of this week we will be at the Atlanta game. Very looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. So we'll be posting stuff as we're there tomorrow. Yep. I don't know exactly what the plan is, but I think Matt Ryan is also getting inducted to the Ring of Honor.
Yep. Yeah.
So that will be cool to watch.
I wonder when Julio gets inducted. I'm surprised they're not doing it together.
Yeah, that'd be cool if they did it together.
Maybe because he's been retired for longer? Because Julio technically came out of retirement, I think, last year or the year before and was on the Eagles for a little bit.
Yeah, and then he was on Tampa for a couple of years as well with Tom Brady.
Yep.
So, But other than that, yes. So look out social media for that. Don't forget, these are bets of the week. Let us know what games you're looking forward to, if there's any injuries, any trades that you think a guy could go and help your team.
Yep.
Or if your favorite team, you think they should trade one of your favorite players to get some draft capital for the next couple years. But other than that, we will see you guys next time. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, all of it, and we will see you guys next time.
All right. It's been real, guys.